Welcome, heathens and witches, to the Horn
and Cauldron
podcast. Yeah, so we're back at it again. Back at the Krispy Kremes. We're at our house.
It's the same bat time as the last time. No, it's not. But it is the same bat channel.
That's fair. It is the same bat channel. Today we are learning about Beltane, which is exciting.
Yeah.
So if you're new here and you're listening to this on a podcast channel, please subscribe. These come out every other Monday, thereabouts. If you're checking us out on YouTube, don't forget to like this video, comment below, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and do all that crap. And, if you want to support more of this kind of creative content, hit us up on Patreon, or it's Jive on Patreon, links in the dibbly, whatever. And, that'll give you access to the, Book of Shadows pages for each one of these, as well as the complete correspondences list, a write-out of the 2 spells that we cover at the end, and access to the Horn and Cauldron
Discord channel,
yeah. So, check that out and, support us there and get witchy, yo.
Yeah, you can also follow us on social media. You can find those links in the description below, as well as at nerdjive.com/links. We just started TikTok channels, so I don't know if those are on the links page yet.
They're totally not, no. But they will
be.
Yeah.
But you can find us on TikTok. I'm Goddess Jules with 2 S's, and I've been doing a short series of videos explaining a lot of different questions that we get about magical practices there. It's super fun.
Yeah, and I'm Jive literally everywhere, including TikTok, and I just do kind of random shit. So
yeah,
check us out. But okay, let's get right into it. Commercials over. All right, guys. So let's talk about Beltane.
Yeah.
What's Beltane?
So Beltane is my favorite Sabbath of the year. It's right around my birthday, so I usually combine it when we're doing things and inviting people over for Sabbats when that's safe to do so. It ends up being like a birthday celebration and Cinco de Mayo and all of that stuff all at once. So we make it a big deal. So Beltane's huge around here. Beltane is usually held on May 1st, which is about halfway between the Spring Equinox and the Summer Solstice. The timing of Beltane differs a little bit depending on what exactly you want to do with your practice and how you want to celebrate. We are huge proponents of doing it whenever works for you. If May 1st, which this year happens to be on a Saturday, but if it's on a weekday or just that's not a good day for you, you can move it. It's totally okay. In fact, any of these Sabbats you can change the dates on, as long as they're mostly within reason. You're not going to offend any of the deities or, miss out on any of the good juju of that particular holiday. And Beltane typically marks the beginning of summer. So because of its proximity to both Easter and Midsummer, some Beltane customs are customs that certain cultures do during Easter and certain cultures do during Midsummer. You can do it all. You can do none of it. It's really up to you. The word Beltane, scholars think means bright or white fire, based on some other Gaelic, which is Irish area, as well as Baltic words. But in Ireland, it's also been called Setsawain, which means first of summer. I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. Apparently I am really bad at pronouncing Irish words, even though it's in my heritage. It is not something that comes easily to my brain or to my mouth. Traditionally in Ireland, Beltane is very popular with herding communities as opposed to traditionally agricultural communities. Sometimes Easter is or Imbolc is more important with them. But traditionally during this time of year in herding communities is when they start to take the livestock out and into the fields after winter and the birthing season and kind of getting everything going. It's not cold and bad for livestock out there. It's not as rainy as it was before, and they'll basically be out all the way until fall. And so this was like a really exciting time because really like the world is waking up right now. In addition to this, Beltane was traditionally celebrated with bonfires, and there's feasts. There's feasts at everyone, but that's okay. Decorating with ribbons and flowers and shells, and visiting holy wells. Honoring the Fae is a very popular custom for Beltane, and so are fertility rituals, because we're kind of doing that Mother Earth growing season kind of thing. So bonfires are probably some of the biggest things that people know about May Day from olden times. And bonfires were typically lit in the towns, sometimes on a hill so they were easier seen, sometimes in sort of like a town square area. And sometimes what they would do is they would make the fire out of like literally rubbing sticks or pieces of wood together for the bonfire, sort of in an effort to make like the most pure fire out of the materials that you could get. And people would commonly put out their own hearth fires on this day, because most homes had a fire that was basically always burning so that they continue to cook food and have, perhaps fresh, clean water. It was not uncommon for people to boil water or a variety of things to keep your home warm. And then once the bonfire was lit, they would take a torch or a candle from the bonfire and they would bring that back to their home and light their new hearth fire again in symbolism of the season. Now, sometimes before they relit their own hearth fire, they would parade a torch, usually, around the perimeter of their property. If it was sort of a smaller property, even, sometimes people had like great swaths of land that they owned, but really their farm was a smaller area. But sometimes they would walk it around the perimeter of their home, and that people would even sometimes do this with livestock. And this was to purify the land, to bring good luck and good health and all of that goodness there before lighting their fire. There's a lot of things that people did with the bonfire too. So it wasn't just light a big bonfire and then go back home. Obviously, you got to have if you're having a bonfire party, you got a capital P party. So some cultures would create an effigy of winter. It was pretty much always shaped like a person, but the gender of the effigy of winter was largely driven by what that particular culture's winter sort of god or goddess was. So some of them it's a woman, some of them it's a man. It kind of depends. And they burnt it along with or as part of the bonfire to sort of scare away winter. This is a fairly common thing in a lot of Slavic and Russian cultures, and even to some of the Norwegian cultures as well. So now is a good time for Beltane, where if you have any Yule goats, or if you made like an old man winter, or anything else that really symbolizes winter, maybe you've still got your like Yule wreath hanging up. We're particularly bad about taking things down quickly. Now is a good time to burn those to sort of symbolize the changing of the seasons, the rebirth, letting go of old stuff, and bringing in new life.
Yeah. If you're gonna burn something, make sure you know what it is that you're burning, and that you're burning it in a safe way, and you have like a fire extinguisher nearby or some way to put out the fire, right? Especially if it like stuff like those wicker Yule, those like straw Yule goats and stuff, because they're like bent and under tension. When the string burns, it can like spring apart.
Yeah, like fly apart.
Which is dangerous. As well as, especially if you're doing like an outside open fire, or you're doing like a fireplace sort of a thing. If you don't have great ventilation, you need to know what it's made out of, so you're not burning something that's poisonous for you to be around the smoke of. Which is like a real ass thing.
Some paints and even some plants and herbs.
Burning dumb stuff. Yeah. So just be cautious and be aware. And there are always other ways. If you have a non-burnable Yule goat or something reusable, you can always trace the Yule goat on a piece of paper and burn that piece of paper. or like
Yeah.
draw a representation or something to that extent and burn that, then you like know that that's safe to burn and such. So
Yep.
just be fire safe, man. Be fire cautious.
Yeah, which leads me to the, the next one, which is the least fire conscious. So, herding communities would often walk their livestock around the bonfire or in between two bonfires, or sometimes they would encourage them, I say encourage in quotations, to jump over the bonfire. And after a while, people started jumping over the bonfire. And when I say the bonfire, traditionally they jump over the embers of the bonfire, not the raging fire part of the bonfire.
Yeah, and also like know how high you can jump.
And how
don't
far?
Don't just like drunk confidence
And how
this.
far?
Make sure you know what's on the other side. If you're gonna land, have somebody on the other side who can prevent you from falling backwards into the fire. Like I've jumped a great many fires, man. Like whatever, you can do it safely, but like be safe about it, you know? All right, you don't need like bloody 3rd-degree burns or something.
Oh my god, please no. Or just maybe don't jump over the fire and just like, you know, walk around it. And people would do this with the bonfires to bless and protect either the livestock or the pets or the people, as well as for good luck and good health and protection. It was kind of like an all-encompassing, like, good vibes sort of thing, unless, of course, you were caught on fire, in which case I imagine that would be the worst vibes possible.
Yeah.
So please, please, please,
Be fire safe.
do not take this as an invitation to start jumping over fires willy-nilly, guys. We do not want to see your video.
Yeah, leave it to the trained professionals.
Yeah. Now, after the fire was out, people would also use the ashes too. So it was common to use the ashes to ensure good health. People would put them on their forehead, or maybe if they had illnesses, they would rub them on people that had illnesses. They would also sprinkle them on their crops for a good harvest, as well as area that livestock would graze on and on the livestock themselves. So there's a lot that goes into fire with Beltane. Because Beltane is considered like the beginning of summer, the fire is really symbolic of the sun coming back and the excitement of and purification that the sun brings to the land. So next on the list is probably always my favorite part, really, which is feasts. I always like making a big elaborate feast for Beltane, but honestly, it's usually just like a big build your own taco board.
Yeah.
Because my birthday is on Cinco de Mayo, and I always do tacos when I invite people over because it's a really easy thing. So just because Beltane is more of an Irish tradition doesn't mean that you have to do a feast in that way. But
eat whatever the hell you want, man. It's a feast.
Yeah, eat whatever you got. If you want nachos, do nachos.
Nachos is also a great party food.
It is. Or if you don't want to cook all week, you just make like a big thing of chili and a big thing of nachos and get a big thing of chips, and that's just all you eat all week. We do that often, more often than we'd like to admit.
It's a great way to live your life. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So feasts are common for pretty much all of the Sabbats, and a lot of get-togethers. It's just a thing that you do. But this one is kind of a twist. So part of the feast historically for Beltane would be plated and sometimes placed outside, but sometimes left on like a sideboard, but not usually left at the table. And this would be left as an offering to the Fae to appease them. There's a lot of Beltane customs that are similar to Samhain customs, although the differences between Beltane and Samhain customs are usually that if a Samhain custom appears in Beltane, or vice versa, Samhain customs are usually associated with the dead and ancestors, and Beltane is usually associated with the Fae, which is a really interesting way to look at that. So it's quite common to leave an offering to the Fae during this time of year to help to appease them and encourage them to be nice to you. And we've got a lot more information about Fae in our podcast episode that we did with working with the Fae. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Fae in this episode, but most of what you're going to want to listen to about the Fae is in that episode. So please give that a listen. as well as I've got some TikTok content coming, talking specifically about the Fae because we work with them a lot. Your hand is very warm. So popular feast foods for a traditional Beltane meal were lamb and a hot drink which is called caudle, which is spelled Caudle, and that is made of eggs and butter, oatmeal, and I wrote butter twice, so I'm guessing a lot of butter, and milk, and that's drank hot. So it seems like an eggnog,
gross,
but with oatmeal.
It sounds gross. Nope. No, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna have a Beltane beer. F that me. Yeah, that sounds awful.
Oatmeal cakes are also really really traditional foods.
On the other side, that sounds delicious.
Yeah. And the oatmeal cakes were commonly also given pieces to like pets and animals and livestock, and the idea that them eating the cake was helping to give them protection and good health and all that other kind of stuff. So the feast is always a big part, but definitely it doesn't have to be exactly what you would expect that a traditional Irish feast would be. The next thing that's really popular is decorating with ribbons and flowers, and most particularly flowers. So for Beltane, any flower really, but especially yellow flowers because they symbolize the sun, are really common and used a lot. They're made into garlands and placed on livestock or doorways or barns or windows, and they are really doing that for, again, health, blessings, good luck. That's kind of the theme of Beltane. Health, blessings, good luck, but also fertility. Inside of homes, you would see bouquets and loose flowers being very popular. People would just toss loose flowers on the floor. We're not going to do that because our dogs would eat that. So before you start throwing flowers on the floor, think about the cleanup.
Just don't.
Just don't.
Yeah.
And think about your
animals. Place them
animals.
gently in specific locations that are pet safe. That's how you want to do that.
Yeah, and people would also carry them around as, like little boutonnieres or whatnot, too. For, again, health, good luck, fertility, all that other good stuff. Another thing that was really common, which I think is cool because it has similarities to what you do with Yule, is a May bush or a May bough. So the bush is outside, and is preferably a small bush, a tree, or a branch. If you can't do it outside, you can do it outside with just a branch from a tree that has been responsibly harvested or you can bring it inside. So that's really the May bough side of things. And you would decorate this with flowers and ribbons and shells and other baubles or goodies. And if it was inside, you could also decorate it with candles because you don't want to have a tree with candles outside. That's how you start a fire.
Yeah.
And also sometimes you can start a fire with a stick with candles on it inside, so be careful about that. Fire safety talk number 2.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really fun idea of doing a May bough and having it in as a display, and it's basically what you do with kind of all that really beautiful Christmas greenery, but instead of it being Christmas greenery, it's spring greenery, and I'm super into that idea. So we may be doing that post haste for decoration for our house. Now, in some areas, people would get wild about this May bush thing, and they would compete for the best May bush, which I'm assuming is either the prettiest or the most densely decorated. And the competition was fierce, and sometimes people would steal each other's May bushes, from outside their house. Could you imagine, going outside and somebody's stealing your bush from your house that you've decorated?
I mean, there's 8 million Christmas movies with the plot line of our block is having a fight about who can have the prettiest Christmas tree decorations. So I have no doubt that humans, even as far back as the Victorian times, were equally petty about decorations for a season. Yeah, that completely makes sense. Yeah, it's not. That doesn't happen where we live or with any of my neighbors. But yeah, that does not surprise me at all that people would fuck with each other's May bushes, especially when competition is afoot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was such a big thing that in some areas, particularly in Ireland, by the Victorian times, May bushes were just outlawed. You couldn't have a May bush because too many hijinks were happening. I want a spring movie about people stealing May bushes from each other. Because that sounds super fun.
If you had a springtime movie that was basically like what's the Christmas movie with I think it's like what is it? It's the guy from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or something.
With Rick Moranis?
Yeah, I think it's got Rick Moranis in it, where it's like two warring houses about decorations. Is that Rick Moranis in the one where like the husband and wife were gonna leave to Hawaii for Christmas, but then they decide not to because whatever. They're like, daughter from college is coming into town, and they have like 24 hours to decorate. Is Uma Thurman the mom in that movie?
I don't know,
straight
and the only
balls?
movie that I can think of that's like that is the one with Vince Vaughn and I think Reese Witherspoon, where they always like tell their family like, "Oh, we have to work, we can't come visit," and they always go on vacation, but then they get busted. It's not the same movie.
That's Four Christmases or whatever the heck it's called.
I don't know.
That's the one where they have to go to all of the family's houses because they've like lied about going for too many times. Yeah. That's also a good movie.
I want Beltane movies. Let's do it.
Like a springtime Christmas festival decoration, like small town with like upper middle class white people stealing each other's decorations and shit would be fucking majestic.
I would be okay with people stealing maypoles. Because I feel like that's super absurd, but a maypole is a lot harder to hide than like a bush.
I mean, yeah, but like if you're gonna take it, you're taking it for the purpose of victory. So
yeah, you're taking it for the victory.
Yeah,
for the revenge. So back to the May bush. So sometimes people would decorate the May bush and then they would throw it in the fire. And it was also fairly common for people to dance around the May bush and then throw it in the fire. Getting a theme here with this?
I mean,
decorate it, burn it with fire. A lot of fire happening for Beltane. And the May bush was like preferably made from a hawthorn tree, like a small hawthorn tree, which, going back to our Working with the Fae episode, where we learned that hawthorn is a popular old-time plant associated with the Fae, so you can kind of see where that's starting to tie in there, and the saw music's kind of like playing in the background as you piece together like the little strings on the corkboard. And the May bush also appears to be linked with acknowledging and appeasing the Fae. Having pretty things to kind of detract from whatever is inside the house. But in some cultures, it's also associated with honoring the spirit of the tree or the bush, or honoring the spirit of the house instead. But those sort of like land and house spirits could also be certain times, construed as being the Fae based on what it is that you're thinking. Because Fae sort of is a big catch-all term there. So maypoles, like I said, I'm okay with the movie where they're stealing maypoles instead of, instead of May bushes.
Well, you gotta have both, right? This house is gonna do like, what you do is you have this house has got a maypole and 3 May bushes, and they got all the spring decorations, and they got tiny fairy doors on every tree and all this kind of stuff. And this house over here,
tiny fairy doors on every tree!
They turn their big tree into a May tree, and this guy over here, he doesn't have a bunch of May trees and maypoles, but he's got like a pile of pallets reaching the top of his 2nd-story house because he's gonna have the biggest bonfire in the land, kind of a thing. Listen, I've seen like fucking every Christmas movie that has ever been made. I could write this movie in my sleep.
It's the
exact formula of a Christmas movie. You got some asshole kids coming in for spring break or whatever the heck. I have no clue when spring break is, but like whatever the heck.
Usually before this.
You've got the summertime shopping. You've got the house that's more worried about their summer bods than they are about the May festivities. And you've got the town square has some sort of historical timeliness. Oh, we've been celebrating this festival for 100 years. It's so honorable, but really it just kind of like spins the whole village into just kind of vague assholery. Yeah. So many of these there's so many Christmas movies.
I'm picturing it
So
as
easy
like
to do.
vaguely Whoville.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you get like a nice. I mean, I would shoot it in Ireland. I would get like a nice Irish village to do it or something like that. You know, but if you wanted to shoot in the U.S., like the greater U.S. Canada area, I would do like one of those like quaint Maine towns.
Yeah.
You know, something like that, like a quaint town in Maine.
Yeah.
Piece of cake.
That would be fun. So maypoles are a little bit of an enigma in that we don't know how long they've been used for these sort of beginning of summer or late spring celebrations. But the first recorded use of maypoles as a festival thing was in 1350 AD, which is a little bit later than the time frame that we see for a lot of other holidays, but not really that far off enough for it to be concerning. Really, the origin of maypoles is unknown. So we don't know exactly where they came from, but they seem to be very common in Germanic regions or regions that were heavily influenced by Germanic religion and practices. So it's thought that they might be spring festival holdovers from the Iron Age, which is from 500 to 1200 Common Era that survived Christianization. So you can kind of see that time frame there as it follows us, and with other things that we talk about, we see a lot of this stuff popping up. The first time being recorded is during the Christianization of Europe, sometime between 700 and 1300 Common Era. Now, some were only used for spring and summer celebrations, but some were, so they were like put up and taken down, but some were just left up all year round, and they would just leave the decorations up until it was time to prepare for next Beltane, and then they take them down and start all over again. And nobody really knows why we use the maypole or what specifically it symbolizes. So there's some fairly hot debates in the scholarly circles about this stuff. I'd like to see them getting drunk. It's like getting drunk and arguing about it, like that meme with the girl and the cat. So some scholars think it's a representation of worshiping sacred trees, like Yggdrasil. And some think that it's a phallic symbol for fertility, big old wood.
Yeah.
But it could also be a holdover of dancing around a bonfire in areas where it wasn't wise to have a bonfire that could possibly get out of control and then, burn down the area.
Sure.
So
Sure.
we don't really know, but maypoles are a really interesting thing that survived the Christianization of Europe in a very robust way, because you can see them all over the place in more modernized and Christian celebrations.
All right, and we're back. Next up, holy wells.
That's right. So holy wells were visited by a lot of people as well, and this may be another one of those holdovers from the Christianization of Europe, but people would go to a holy well and they would pray for health, and while they would be walking sunwise around the well, which is from the east towards the west. And I imagine that people probably did it at like their local well also, again, for health and protection and all that other kind of stuff, because without a source of water, you can't really survive. So I imagine that people used not just holy wells, but just regular wells too. And people that visited these holy wells would often leave offerings after their prayers, many times coins or other baubles or clooties, which are strips of cloth. They would leave there as decoration or as payment to the people who are keeping up the holy well. Visitors would also wash their face with the well water. And if you weren't visiting a holy well, it was actually pretty popular to collect the dew on Beltane morning and rub it on your face or roll around in it. And it was thought that the water from the holy well on Beltane, or the dew on Beltane, would give the user of this water youth and help with skin ailments, or even just to be like super hot, just to get prettier.
I mean, it's Beltane, man. Do the dew.
That's right. Do the dew. Yeah.
I I think that's what that means. So
Yeah, yeah. Regardless of what exactly people were doing for Beltane, it is clear that offerings honoring the Fae or appeasing the Fae were very popular and done in many different ways. The veil at this time of year is thin. That's something you normally hear around Samhain times, but Beltane also has a lot of those same similarities. So fairy encounters and magic, working with fairies, was very popular this time of year. They celebrated and honored the Fae with the feasts like we talked about earlier, and walking livestock near fairy forts or fairy circles. People would leave a small amount of blood on or near a fairy fort or a fairy circle, either from themselves or from livestock, so that it was sort of like partially an offering, but part of a, hey, like, I'm your friend, recognize me because I gave this thing to you. So there's a lot of work there, and a lot of people report interactions with the Fae more during this time of year than during others. So it's kind of a fun and bright and mischievous time of year. And again, listen to our episode about working with the Fae for more information about the Fae. Mm-hmm. They are not a bad thing. The Fae is not a bad word, and they are not bad for you. So listen to that if you want more information about the Fae. But one thing that's interesting about these Beltane customs that is a bit unlike most of the other Sabbath customs is that few of these have been practiced unbroken since ancient times. So Beltane appears to be a fairly new celebration, although some of the like pillars of what it is that you how you practice Beltane, how you honor Beltane seem to be fairly ancient. Beltane itself seems to be very new. So most of the traditions that we are talking about or that we see in modern times have been revived or revised or even created to sort of elevate Beltane to a different level. So you really kind of got those like pillar of spring summer festivals, and Beltane's kind of like right smack in the middle. And one of those is hand fasting. So in modern times, hand fasting, or a pagan / Wiccan way of being married, is very popular for Beltane because of all that it signifies, including the fertility aspect.
Yeah, well, and I mean, when you think about it, like, weddings are hotter in the springtime. You do more business as a wedding in the springtime.
That's true. Absolutely.
Than you do in any other time. So it all sort of makes sense. I mean, the thing with Beltane being sort of a more modern thing is that we're sort of using a catch-all term for a bunch of different regional celebrations, right? I mean, it's like some people did May bushes, and some people did maypoles, and some people did the wells, and some people did Fae stuff, and some people didn't do Fae stuff. And I mean, like, as we read through this, you can hear there's a lot of like diversity and creativity involved in this, and a lot of that is because something like a Beltane is an incredibly regional holiday, right? It's celebrated specific to sort of like the stuff what with is around you, right? It's like, oh, it's best if it's with a hawthorn bush, but like if hawthorn doesn't grow in your area of the planet, then it's not best with a hawthorn bush.
Yeah, hawthorn doesn't grow where we live, so that's not helpful for us.
Right, that's not round here. So, like, again, it's one of those things where it's, the commonality or the normalization might be in one direction, but not the band. But you have to adapt it for your region, because there is a degree of regionality when you're talking about like local, especially like nature-based celebrations and holidays and stuff, right? Absolutely. Like if you're in a high fire zone, don't do a bonfire. Do like a fucking maypole or something, right? Yeah. That's like way easier.
Or make a cardboard fire.
Yeah, or whatever.
Or something.
Like or whatever, dude. Like, yeah. So it's and it's just the same. Like, if like hawthorn might not even survive where we live, right? Yeah. If it requires an incredible amount of sun, it ain't gonna make it around here. Yeah. So we couldn't have one even if we wanted. Yeah. So again, like, take regionality into consideration. when you're doing this, and like.
Well, and also
you
timing.
can see that that's what's happened with Beltane, like, historically.
Absolutely. And also timing, because Beltane isn't tied to a particular astrological event.
Dude, if
the Spring
May 1st
Equinox
is a Wednesday
midsummer,
and you got work, like, just go to work, dude. You can celebrate on Saturday. Like, it's fine.
You can celebrate whenever you want.
Yeah, we've definitely pushed a blot or a fest or what have you, one way or the other by a week or so, just because, like, well, we need for a holiday, or it's like, we have, like, a thing. I have a beer fest or some nonsense like that. So it's like, we're going to push the party one way or the other. And it's all,
exactly. As long as your
gang.
intent is still there, like everything else we say, it's all about the intent. So do what you want with this, and also when is best for you.
Yeah, adapt.
Adapted to you, most specifically. Yeah. So we celebrate Beltane in probably a lot of very novel ways, just because of it being my birthday season, and we kind of tie a lot of things into one. So we've already talked about a few things, like we usually have a party with a taco bar. I have had piñatas since I was a kid, so I usually always make a piñata. Making piñatas is super fun, and could be a really great way to celebrate this season. And you don't necessarily have to make a piñata and fill it with a bunch of candy or a bunch of like tiny cheap plastic toys. You can make a piñata and fill it with flowers or flower petals or whatever it is that you want to make a piñata and fill it with. It's a fun way to sort of celebrate the season. So we do that with a piñata and with a taco bar, but we also usually do a ritual, and with that we usually have a big fire in the fire pit.
Yep, we always do a big fire.
Yeah.
And we do aggressively stiff piñatas, and generally we have to result in axes and swords and such. Again, be safe.
That's right.
We're always safe.
We found that working with wish magic is particularly good this time of year. We have a lot of bay trees where we live, and they have a particular penchant for granting wishes. So that's one. Another thing is awakenings and rebirth. Those are all sort of ways that we celebrate. But really, the thing that stands out the most to me about how we handle Beltane is that's really the time of year where we live, it's starting to be warm enough and dry enough that we can start working in the yard again. So for us, outside of the ritual setting, Beltane is really about getting back to the land and giving back to the land in terms of cleaning it up and getting ready for the growing season and all of that stuff, just enjoying being outside and in the spring and gardening.
Like that. And we live in a fairly wetter than normal. I mean, it's like a 20-degree difference, like an hour into town from our house.
That's right.
So our house, it's less sunny, and it's damper and moister and all that sort of stuff, and cooler. So our growing season's a little bit different, but yeah, we do a lot of gardening. This is like all the flowers are just rocking right now, so we do a lot of that. It's a lot of like opening up the house and clearing stuff out and cleaning stuff up that's accumulated over the winter. So yeah, it's like a rejuvenatory time.
Yeah. And if you want an easy way to bring Beltane into your life or some of that spirit of the season, go to the store and get yourself a bouquet. Whether it's a store or a farmer's market, or you're buying a plant from a nursery, or whatever it is, fill your house with some beautiful flowers and growing things.
Yeah.
It definitely helps to brighten a mood. That's been psychologically proven on many occasions, but is also a really nice way to low-key bring that stuff into the season, especially if you're somebody who's in the broom closet or you don't have an altar. Just a vase with pretty flowers that you like, it really goes a long way to honoring the spirit of Beltane.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah. Which is actually a perfect segue, because we have our two spells. So, like usual, one is a crafting spell, and that is making a flower crown. One of my favorite things. I love flower crowns so much.
That's true.
I don't even care how basic it is. I love them. So if you are not a flower crown type of person, you can also turn this into a wreath instead, or a decorative circlet in some way. So you really need only 3 things. You need flowers, and you need some wire, and you need some ribbons. But you can always add more things. If you've got beads you want to use, or any kind of fun baubles or threads or anything like that, bust it out. And this particular way to make a flower crown, you do not need a hot glue gun. Unless you really want to use one, in which case, go for it. I always burn myself on it, so I prefer to not. So it's best if you can purchase fresh flowers, but if you can't do that, or if you don't want to do that, fake flowers will work just as well. No one is going to be upset if you're using fake flowers. It's totally okay. I promise. So with the wire, and it can be a heavy duty wire, or it can be more of a light duty wire. They sell spools of floral wire at craft stores, and those are really good for, to use for this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So with the wire, start out by making a loop that's the size you want your circlet, your crown, or your wreath to be. So this would mean that you might want to put it on your head to test it out, or if you're planning on placing it on a wall or on your altar, however there. You can do multiple, you can do just one, you can do big, you can do small. The sky is the limit here. Do what you want to do and do what feels right. So once you've made the loop that's about the size you want the circlet to be, start adding flowers and ribbons to decorate it. Now, if you've got flowers, you can leave them with the stem on and sort of wrap them around the wire as it goes around, or you can pluck the buds off and wire those on, and use ribbons in that way. Again, the sky's the limit here. Do whatever you want to do. There is no right way. There is no wrong way. It's all fun, and it's all going to look nice in the end. So continue to use flowers and add ribbons and anything else until, until it looks the way that you want. But heavily rely on that wire, because that's what's going to keep everything in place, and it's going to help shape your wreath. You can also get a pre-made wreath to do this, and then add the flowers and bits and bobs onto it too. There is no problem with that. There's no need for you to make stuff from scratch if you're not that particular kind of crafty person. That's okay. Yeah. You can also purchase a pre-made flower crown or wreath. We are not judging you or your crafting abilities.
Yeah. If it's easier to buy a flower crown, or you want one that's like especially gangster, just buy that shit. That's a smart move.
Yeah, we have zero problems with that.
Yeah.
Once you have
we make them fairly frequently with regard to these festivals that we do. And normally what we do is we just kind of get like a bunch of fresh flowers and like a bunch of fake flowers or dry flowers or whatever the fuck, and like a bunch of wire of varying thicknesses. It's what I generally like is a large gauge, like a heavy gauge wire for the ring around your head, mm-hmm. and then you want like a thinner gauge wire for like coiling the like flowers and ribbons and bits like back to the main wire. Mm-hmm. But you can also get those like weird wicker, those like brown wicker branch bloody wreath. They're like wreath starters. Yeah. We get those, I think they're at like Michael's where we live, but
or Joann's or a craft store.
Get like a wreath starter, which is just the like branchy part, so you can attach everything to it. That works good. And if you are going to use a hot glue gun, again, like be careful. That shit's hot.
Yeah. Also keep in mind that a hot glue gun is literally hot plastic that you're putting onto a thing. So if you're using fresh flowers, the hot glue may damage the flowers.
Or discolor them.
Or if it's a particularly moist kind of flower, the hot glue sometimes has problems keeping the flower affixed where you want it to be, which is why we recommend wire over hot glue.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so get your crafted on, or, get whatever you want. Purchase it ready-made from something. And once you've got your wreath or your circlet or your crown, charge it. Charge it with the intentions of the season. Charge it with the idea of growing and awakening, of protection and health and fertility, and wear it. Or use it to decorate your space, or whatever it is that you want to do with it. But use that as your talisman for Beltane to remind you of the Beltane energy. And you don't necessarily have to throw it out. You can keep it and let it dry. And this is also a great time to collect and dry flowers, or because flowers are in bloom just about everywhere, or to purchase and then dry flowers for future witchy projects. But this is a really fun one. And I really enjoy making flower crowns every year. Sometimes we do fresh flowers and sometimes we do fake flowers. It just really kind of depends on what we're feeling like. The only downside to using fresh flowers is that not all flowers retain their petals as they dry.
Yeah.
So that is something where if you're making it with fresh flowers, try to make it and enjoy it as much as you can while those flowers are still alive, especially if they don't particularly like to keep their flowers like lilies do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or keep their petals like lilies do. So that is making a magical crown.
Yeah.
And next we have another sort of fun crafting project. I mean, it is fun, but it's sort of a crafting project. This one is a witch's ladder, and this one is for good health, which really aligns with the Beltane season. So for this one, you'll need thread, yarn, ribbon, fabric straps, or something like that, something cloth or textile that are in strips if you're using fabric, or just, lengths of thread or yarn. You also may want any baubles such as shells or feathers or old keys or beads, stones, bones, anything that you think anything you feel has a connection to your craft and the intention of good health, or if you decide to use this for something else, you can do that too. And keep that on hand. So once you've assembled all of your materials, think of a short sentence to repeat or to meditate on while you braid and add your decorations. So if you want to do this for good health, you would say, I am healthy, I am strong and vibrant. I welcome the blessings of the universe and they strengthen me. And you'll want to repeat this either out loud or in your head as you continue to braid, and it can be however long or however short you want, and then decorate. Or don't decorate. You don't even have to do any of that stuff. It's commonly called a witch's ladder because when it's decorated very commonly with feathers, the feathers are stuck in at a perpendicular angle. So the braid is straight, and then the feathers get poked into the braid afterwards, resembling roughly a ladder. Now, once you're done with creating your ladder, you can hang it, you can keep it on your altar, or you can also place it into a pouch to carry with you as a talisman. Obviously, size limits,
Don't carry around like a huge pouch, that's crazy.
Or carry around a huge pouch if that's your thing.
Yeah, that's also fair.
And use that as your talisman. And this is a nice one to do if you are in the broom closet, because once you've created your witch's ladder, it can just go in a drawer somewhere. Or in a pouch to go in your pocket, or wherever it is that you want. That witch's ladder can stay with you. Yeah. So those are some fun ways to keep that Beltane magic going.
Yeah, definitely. It's
Yeah. So next we have correspondences, my favorite part. Yeah. So Beltane correspondences. We've got animals. So bees, birds, cows, livestock, goats, and rabbits are all associated with Beltane. And for colors, all the colors, especially yellow, but especially flower colors and green growing colors. I mean, all those colors.
Yeah.
All of them. Stones and crystals, you can use bloodstone, emerald, rose quartz, sapphire, or really any green stone will work.
Yeah, you're back to those natural plant colors.
Mm-hmm. As far as herbs go, daisy, hawthorn, like we've already talked about. Ivy is pretty much always common for these types of sabbats. Lilac, lilies, lily of the valley, and really any sort of seasonal herb that is, really just kicking right now. And foods are kind of the same thing. Any seasonal fruits or vegetables, in addition to that, dairy or lamb, like we talked about, oats, salads are really popular for Beltane. So is punch and red or pink wine, and mead is also very popular for Beltane, as is anything that's made with honey. If you're looking to do incense or have oils, like essential oils and a mister or something like that, stick with something that's flowery if you can, although you can also go with anything that's sort of earthy and woodsy, depending on how you're feeling. There's a lot of deities that are associated with Beltane. A lot of them. All of them. Almost all of them. Most of the deities have, as a sort of aspect, is something that is fertility or for growing things. So Aphrodite, Artemis, Bladued, Cernunnos, Cupid, Dionysus, Freya, Flora, the Green Man and the Horned God, Morgan Le Fay, coming back to the fairies there, Pan, Persephone, Odin, Rhiannon. These are all popular gods for this particular time. If you wish to invoke one of them or work with one of them during this time, it would be great. And then other symbols are awakenings. You can use cups or chalices. Eggs are still pretty popular, so are fairies. Any fertility charms or fertility little widgets. Fire, of course, we've talked about at length. Flowers, anything that's growing. Any May baskets or flowers in like little bouquets, as well as maypoles, of course, and satyrs. All of that kind of woodland meadow stuff is really associated with Beltane.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, that was Beltane. That's a lot. That was a lot.
That was a lot. We packed it into a very short amount of time.
Yeah, that was a lot about Beltane. Again, as I've said a million times, and I'll say a million times, you'll get used to it. If you're gonna do stuff with fire, be safe. Don't be stupid. Either way, I have been John Norgrove. This has been Julie Norgrove. Don't forget to like this video, comment below, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that kind of stuff. If you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, if you're listening to us on any of the podcast networks, don't forget to subscribe. These come out every other Monday.
And leave us a review if you can. It helps other people find our content as well.
Yeah, definitely leave us a review if you want to see our stupid faces. These are all on Facebook or
Not
YouTube.
Facebook. They're on YouTube.
They're all on YouTube. Work is getting to my mind, guys. It's fine. These are all on YouTube. Speaking of social media, follow us on social media. It was all an elaborate ruse to transition to that.
You can find him at Nerd Jive everywhere, and you can find me as Goddess Jules, either with 1 or 2 S's everywhere. And you can also find the links to all of these things in the show notes and at our website, which is nerdjive.com/links. I said those backwards, and that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, well, just nerdjive.com. Just go to
nerdjive.com.
That's got all the stuff. But, yeah. Oh, and if you want to support more fun stuff like this, witchy stuff and nerdy stuff and such, we have a Patreon for this podcast. The podcast Patreon includes a Book of Shadows page for the podcast episode specific, as well as the spells and a complete list of the correspondences.
Yeah, and usually also fun cell phone backgrounds.
Oh yeah, and I make fun cell phone backgrounds. So yeah, those come out. They generally take me a week, but sometimes they take longer. It depends on how difficult it is to do. But
and what our real life has to do with it.
Yeah, because we got real jobs right now.
We have day jobs, so if you really want to support
Spread
us in
around,
the content,
give us more friends.
Yeah.
Give us money. What's up?
Yeah, refer us to others and check out our Patreon. That's how we get spending more time with y'all.
But we will catch you guys on the flip side. Stay magical.
Stay
y'all.
magical.